Hi everyone, good evening. Charlotte here from Enriching Environments for Top Tip Tuesday. And I'll just wait a moment whilst everyone gets online and all ready. Hello, good evening. So I've just had a fly. Hello, thank you for the hearts. Does the plant look better now? So this evening, thank you for joining. This evening we are going to be discussing appreciating the natural heritage of the UAE. And this came about due to the film that we viewed on last Friday at our event at Yoga House in Greens. And the film was called Childhood, and it was this beautiful, really quiet, sensitive documentary about a kindergarten, a Waldorf kindergarten in Norway. And it was an hour and a half long documentary. Hi Helena. An hour and a half long documentary, and it was so quiet and beautiful, and the children were in this Norwegian forest and were surrounded by nature all of sorry, I think I'm back now. It just said I paused due to a bad connection, but I think I should be back now. And this documentary was so so beautiful, because everything that the children did they were connected with nature. So the materials they had, it was a wooden cabin, which was their school, and then the materials they had was all in wood and natural materials like wool and cotton, like everything they had, the toys they're playing with, the little puppets they had, and their work, as it were, their play, their work outside, everything was in nature. And everyone who's seen this film and everyone at the event was saying, oh, this is so amazing, but you sort of have this sinking feeling when you come away from watching it, living here, because you think, oh my goodness, how on earth am I going to recreate a Norwegian forest in a desert metropolis? How am I going to, how can I recreate this same experience? And as one of my audience said on Friday, oh my goodness, I'm living in the wrong part of the world. And actually, the takeaways that we had from this film, and then we sort of expanded on our discussion later, that after the film, this is what led me to this Instagram live, because actually it's not about thinking, oh, I'm living in the wrong place, or it's not about, oh, there's nothing here, so we need to go and spend loads of money to get all these experiences, amazing experiences that you can get here, to see other animals, but other animals from around the world. But what I'd like to do this evening is offer a different perspective and talk about celebrating what we have here, celebrating what we have in the UAE, in the GCC, in the Middle East, and looking at how our mindset and how our approach to our children and how we view things will have such a massive impact on how they view nature here, on how they view Dubai, actually, how they view the city, how they view our experiences here. Because for most of us, this isn't going to be a forever home, but we want our memories of when we live in this incredible city to be ones that it is actually a broad range of experiences. You want them to remember those crazy giant yellow wasps. There's the potter wasp and there's the paper wasp that we get here on there. You want them to remember those things, when they're older. There is a huge diversity and richness in the natural heritage we can find here in the UAE. It doesn't look like what's in a Norwegian forest. It doesn't look like, cows and building tree houses and all of those things. It doesn't look like that. It doesn't look like jumping in the snow unless you're at Ski Dubai. So it does look very, very different, but we're not seeking to replicate what we may have had in Australia or South America or North America, Europe. It's not going to look like what we experience in our home countries, but that doesn't matter. What we have here is unique to the UAE and is unique to our experience and our place in time here. So let's celebrate what we have here. And then this brings in actually a wider discussion about being in nature. What does that really look like when we are in nature? Are we having it for a scheduled, nice compartmentalized, clean part of time, clean and an ordered part of time? Or are we really being in nature? Can we, and we discussed this on Friday, can we, when we go to the beach, can we leave our phone in the car for a few hours so that we are actually truly connecting with nature? Because, and we all do it. I'm not saying that we don't do it. I'm not saying I don't do it, but we go to the beach or we go for a walk and we're still on our phones the whole time, whether it's taking photos or what have you. But connecting with nature and getting the benefits of being in nature and being present in nature is very different to sitting on a beach, but us being on our phones or us taking photos or, you know, wishing we were doing something else or wishing we didn't have sand everywhere, all those things, you know. It's a different experience being in nature, whatever nature we're having, if we really can be there and be present and be in the moment with it. So the first invitation I'd like to offer you this evening, and which is what I offered on Friday evening, is yes, the next time you go to the beach, can you leave your phone at home all day? That would be a bit shocking, wouldn't it? Or can we leave our phones in the car for the time that we're there, so we don't have any other distractions, so we have a chance to appreciate what's there? And there's lots of things we can do with our children. I mean, I'm using the beach because it's there and it's amazing here. And if you go somewhere, particularly an undeveloped beach, I mean, Kite Beach and all the other beaches are amazing here. I love the beaches in the UAE and Dubai. It's one of the best and one of my favorite things about being here. And I love the desert as well. But being on the beach here, we can hone our senses and we can support our children in having an appreciation of being in nature. So when we're on the beach and we're sitting on our towel or building sandcastles or whatever we're doing, you know, we can hone our senses by inviting them to, we can close our eyes for a minute and we can listen. What can we hear when we close our eyes? What can we smell? You know, all of those things. We can really refine our senses in a fun way, in a game, in a playful way with our children, so that we are maximizing the benefits, as it were, of being in nature. We are really showing our children that we're really enjoying being there as well. We are immersing ourselves fully in that experience. And another part of that immersing ourselves in the experience is to, for example, when you're going to the beach, usually we just take sort of old buckets and plastic spades or whatever. Another invitation that I extended to the audience on Friday evening was to go with no toys, nothing else, and see what we can make, what we can explore when we don't have any toys. And the other benefit of that is then we don't have anything artificial with us. If we don't have our phone because we left it in the car, and we don't have our plastic toys either, we're going to have as natural an experience as possible. And it's all about immersing ourselves in these really, and the richness of the natural experience, whether it's what we're hearing or smelling or seeing, and when we're paddling, all of these things can we do without any of our modern life props, as it were. And even this is going to be quite contentious, me saying that, you know, these little beach shoes that you get, and they're great because the pools are really hot at the moment, you know, tars around the pool. But if we're going to the beach and then we're completely cover our children head to foot in a rash vest, and then we're putting the protective shoes on, then they're going to go to the beach and have a really sterile experience as well. So can we, whilst we're still keeping them safe in the sun and whilst we're making sure that they're not stepping on anything that's going to hurt them, can we give them as natural experience as possible? Again, you know, if we're completely protecting them from anything to do with nature, again, they're going to get this sort of underlying message that nature's scary or it's boring because we need to bring all these other things in. So there's lots and lots of subtle ways, but actually quite powerful ways that we can normalize nature and normalize the experience in nature and the richness of that sensorial experience. So that's just a few ideas about what we can do when we're at the beach. And as we said, there's some beautiful beaches in Dubai, and when we're there, we can. Oh, perfect. Thank you, Helena. Glimpses of the UAE. I was going to share a resource later, actually, called, connectwithnature.ae is one of the resources I'm going to share, which is a really great website on exactly that, connecting with nature. And it's in association with the World Wildlife Fund, and it's so brilliant, amazing ideas. Helena, can I ask you, the website that you've said, Glimpses of the UAE, is that glimpsesoftheuae.ae or .com? If you could give us the exact web address, that would be awesome. Fantastic. Thank you for that suggestion. And there's 2 books I wanted to mention as well, actually. One is very much for us as adults, or if you have older children. It's called an encyclopedia, or the Encyclopedia of Arabia. And that covers everything. We've only had it for about a month, 6 weeks, and it is incredible. I got it on Book Depository, so Encyclopedia of Arabia. I'll show you the front cover. It'll be back to front, obviously, because we're on Insta Live, but this is what the cover looks like, and I'll share it on stories as well so you can see it. Oh, perfect. Thank you, Helena. So it's an Instagram page, Glimpses of the UAE. Perfect. So that this encyclopedia is amazing because it covers animals, it covers plant life, and it covers a lot of culture as well. And it talks about mosques and clothing and food and everything to do with heritage of Arabia, both natural and the history of the Bedouins and everything. It's a really, really fantastic book, and that's where I learned the names of the wasps that I mentioned earlier. And then there's a great book for children called I Spy Dubai, Birds and Bugs. Again, I'll share the front cover on stories after this, later this evening. But there is some great stuff for us to learn here whilst we're here, and in such a different, for so many of us, the terrain here, the climate here is so different to what we are used to. And that actually is really fascinating. It's for us, but particularly for young children, because in the first 6 years of life, they learn with all of their senses and they are absorbing everything. Fostering an interest in something that's so unusual and so what they're not going to be used to, you know, maybe before they came here or in the future, is a really incredible experience for them. And our approach in terms of our genuine interest and our respect for nature is so important in this, you know, and we all have our little idiosyncrasies of which insects we don't like and how we don't like, I don't know, yeah, we don't like getting too sandy on the beach and all of those things, but it's just worth us remembering that any of the unconscious messages we give off about nature being inconvenient or dirty or don't touch this or don't touch that and what have you. I mean, a bit like the coronavirus thing at the moment, you know, our children can't touch anything, and that's it's really difficult for young children, particularly Piccolini, because they need to explore and they need to pick up and touch everything. But because of this very real virus that's happening and our genuine concerns about it, it's they're not being able to explore as much as they could perhaps beforehand. So that's worth bearing in mind as well, particularly if you have younger children, is providing opportunities to be in nature and really give them a chance to explore, because we're not going to be able to give these opportunities as much as we did before because of the coronavirus fears. And giving them space and time is so, I know I probably say it in every single Instagram live, but giving them space and time to explore is what's needed. Having these really special family times or one-on-one parent and child times is so important, and then we can talk about what we're seeing, but also we can just be silent with them and then watch them as they learn, watch them as they experience, you know, wait for their questions. That is all part of the overall appreciation, the feeling that they will get about nature and being in nature and how important it is. Because the more that they appreciate nature as young children, as I'm sure you know, then the more they're going to want to protect it as they get older and as they're adults. They're going to be the ones who are making a stand to stop trees being cut down, or I don't know, something in the sea being damaged or polluted. Our children are the generation who are going to stop these things and hopefully going to be able to turn the tide on what's happening to our planet in terms of climate change and all the environmental aspects environmental impact that we're having on at the moment. So giving them the space and time to to be in nature and to really explore it at their own pace is so, so invaluable, particularly in the early years, but throughout childhood, of course. Excuse me one moment. One of my favourite things to do in Dubai is to, for me actually, Dubai is birds and insects. And we used to live in Greens, and for those of you who know Greens, it's such a beautiful apartment community, and it's built around this huge, huge lake. And the birds around that lake are incredible, and of course they're seasonal and some of them migratory. And I used to have a friend who lived here who was a bird watcher, and so when Olivia was a piccolini, so this was 4 or 5 years ago, Olivia and I would spend every day walking around the lake, and whenever our friend came with us, she would name all these birds for us, so I got to learn them, and then Olivia got to learn them from a really young age. And in terms of a real experience of the animals we have here, and something that's free, which of course is on everyone's mind, just going for a really simple walk around the lake in Greens, I can't recommend highly enough. It is just a stunning place for bird watching, and there's ducks there, and then depending on the time of year there'll be storks nesting on the chimneys, and there's herons as well, and if you're really lucky you'll see a heron catch a fish, which is amazing. And there's the minor birds, the really loud squawky ones with the yellow beaks, and the bulbuls, the ones with the really little cute fluffy heads, and then there's the hoopoes, which are the ones with a really long curved beak. There are so many birds in Hi Becky, and Hi Rita. There are so many birds just around the lake in Greens, and if anyone lives anywhere else in Dubai who knows of a place like Greens, which is another amazing community for wildlife, then please do let me know. Whilst we're talking about birds, I want to talk about the flamingos in Hi Becky, the flamingos at Ras Al Khor Sanctuary. That is an incredible sight. The greater flamingo is actually native to the UAE, which I didn't know before. And again, particularly in the winter season, the flamingos is such an incredible sight, and that's worth doing with younger children, with older children. It's really fantastic, and there's the different points from which you can see it within the sanctuary itself. Moving now to insects. We currently live out in Remram, so a bit further out in the desert, and I think the best thing about living out in Remram is the insects are so much more diverse. The ants here are huge and really bite, but we really see lots of different wasps, and we see them try to make nests on our terrace, so we scrape them off every time we see them trying to make a nest. But even insects become really fascinating. This is the wildlife that we have here, so get really curious, get really interested about insects. We make a bug jar, and that's just a jar with a couple of holes in the lid. We have a 15-minute sound timer, so we catch whatever bug we have, we place it in the jar really carefully, and then put the jar on the table so the children can look at it for 15 minutes, and then we put it back into nature. Just little things like that which establish a ground rule for our children around being respectful about wildlife and animals and insects. That really helps them, and it means we can get up close and personal and then let them go again. And we've got a magnifying glass, of course, which is brilliant. I think ours was from Daiso, I think, not at all expensive. It's just all of these ways where we can have a celebration of the wildlife, little things like is it the tiger butterfly, the plain tiger butterfly? Here, the orangey one that you see everywhere in the UAE, everywhere in Dubai, even in the city. The butterflies are really gorgeous here, and they really remind me of my home in the UK, actually, or where I came from in the UK. But the butterflies here are gorgeous, and just in the 5 years we've been here, it really feels like the butterflies have really increased, which must be a really good sign that the ecosystem here is developing. But definitely butterflies here is something really interesting that children can get really passionate about. What else were we going to say? Oh, the desert, of course, the desert. within half an hour of Dubai, we've got some really incredible wild desert. You can see camels actually often on Hesse Street driving out from, so Hesse Street runs from the marina to the Emirates Road. And most days when we're driving on Hesse Street, we see camels alongside the road there. And you don't have to drive very far out of the city at all to see wild camels wandering. Just beyond Al Qudran, where the cycle track is, there's some really lovely spots where you can go to in the winter and or when the weather's cooler, and build a fire in the evenings and stargaze. And there's one with a little camel farm right next door, so you see the camels being brought in at sunset. And just these little things, again, they don't cost anything, but it's the natural heritage of the UAE. Camels are part of the Arabian Peninsula, aren't they? So it's so wonderful to get close to them and see them and learn a little bit about them in this way. We don't need the artificial experiences that we think we may need. We do have a huge amount here to celebrate. So yeah, building a fire in the desert is so fantastic, and don't forget to clear up everything before you leave. And I think that might be everything, unless anyone has any questions or any other resources they could share. That would be really, really fantastic. Let me just check my bullet points. I think that's everything, unless anyone has anything else to share. So our 3 main points from this evening were, we're not trying to recreate our home country. So don't worry about recreating your home country, about being in nature. There is so much we can do to connect with nature here in the UAE and celebrate and appreciate the natural heritage of the UAE. There are lots of other experiences you can have, but don't be disheartened thinking that we're trying to create a North American forest, because we're not going to be able to. There is huge amounts that we can do here and learn here from this incredible terrain and this incredible city that we live in. There was number 1. Number 2 was inviting you to, when you have a day in nature, whether that's at the beach or at the desert, to really disconnect, to have a digital detox, to not take our phone or leave the phone in the car, to not take any plastic toys to the beach, to see what we can find to play with, what can we explore to play with in nature that is completely just our bare hands. And the reason this really struck me was that in the film that we watched on Friday, is that all the children's pretend play was outdoors and with nature, and they were making sushi, they were making chili, they were doing huge amounts of role play and pretend play, symbolic play, just with things in nature, with rocks and with sticks and with moss and all of these different things. And it really made me think that we don't actually need toys when we're in the natural world. We've got probably everything that we need around us when we go to the beach or when we go to the desert. It's what imagination can create is what's more of value when we're in nature. So disconnecting from nature, and don't take anything, don't take any props to take us away from that natural experience. And then the third thing was whenever we're in nature and talking about the natural heritage of Dubai, just being really, really positive, being really positive about all the insects that we see and the birds that we see, and trying not to pass on our own hang-ups about certain insects, and we all have them, and just really enjoying the moment and allowing that unscheduled and unstructured time to explore, like stepping back, sitting back and allowing your children to explore, and showing that genuine curiosity and love and interest that they have for nature. Actually, it comes naturally to a child, so we can just follow their lead. So thank you all for joining me this evening, and thank you so much for your input. And I will put on stories, I'll find this account that Helena mentioned and I'll put that in the story. So I have 2 books to share with you, Illustrated Encyclopedia of Arabia, and I have I Spy Dubai, I Spy Birds and Bees Dubai, Birds and Bugs Dubai, and Glimpses of the UAE is what Helena said, Instagram account. So I will send that on my stories as well. Thank you all very much for joining me. And this next coming weekend, we have our next event, at the Yoga House in Greens. That will be on August the 28th. That is a documentary about Montessori method of education and how it goes through from the nido, which is babies, all the way up to high school. So I can't wait to see you then. Thank you so much for joining me this evening, and I'll see you again soon. Bye bye.